So I'm going to invite Tom Johnson, the Operations Director at TTEC, to now join us on screen. And Tom is going to be talking about how to deliver great employee experience in unprecedented times. Tom, are you there? Here we come. Fantastic. In that case, Tom, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I will just start sharing my presentation today. Okay, so here we go. So I am known as a bit of a talker, so this is going to be a challenge for 20 minutes, but here we go. Okay, so I'm here to talk today about how we've delivered employee experience and engagement during the whirlwind of what was 2020-21. I'm Tom Johnson. I'm the Operations Director for our Volkswagen UK Customer Service Centre at TTEC. I'll tell you a little bit about TTEC, and then I will go in to tell you about a case study, really, that I would like to share with you. And when I say case study, it's probably more of a journey, which in effect is a TUPE transfer from one outsourcer to another, that then turned out what should have been 3 miles across the Leeds city centre turned out to be in the middle of a pandemic lockdown, whilst, as I said, TUPE transferring into a new productive hour contract that was going through a huge transformation, a digital transformation that is effectively the biggest transformation that the Volkswagen CSC has seen during its 13 years tenured as an outsourced model. And yes, I have said that statement quite a few times in performance reviews and award submissions, but it's been one of those years, and you know, we've learned so much. And what I wanted to share with you today is just what we've learned, really, and how we've overcome it, and things that we've put in place as we've gone through that transition. So we are TTEC. We design, build and operate exceptional customer experiences for and with some of the world's biggest brands and biggest organisations. And here's a little kind of infographic about some quick stats on TTEC there. This is kind of, these next couple of slides, this is the TTEC package, really, and what we aim to do. And we're a digital focused company, harnessing the digital, up to the minute digital tech and emerging technology to deliver that to talented teams and individuals so they can interact with customers in the most effective way. This is our mantra. This is what we stand by. This is what we deliver to teams all across the globe. And as you can see there, this is how it plays out in the teams. You know, we invest heavily in leadership and in talent. We invest heavily in digital and digitalization of technology, and we try and build a culture and a community that can harness all these things and therefore deliver it to the customers of ours. Okay, so when now specifically zoning in on engagement and employee experience, these are some of the elements that we apply to our business. Energized environments, of which I'm going to show you a little bit in a minute, of the Leeds environment that we're currently in. Workplace perks and benefits. We have a huge game, it's what we call the gamified talent engine, you know, where individuals and teams are rewarded either through awards and badges and prizes, or even monetary values as well. So there's an incentivized and a morale gamified approach to all our colleagues that work here. We utilize chatbots and SMS and live chats to take people through their journeys of working here, be it, you know, from a new employee that's starting in the business to a tenured employee that's going through a development program. And then we try and cater all that alongside our well-being and wellness approach to ensure we've got that right balance. And I'll explore some of these categories as we go through the Volkswagen CSC journey. So this is Leeds. This is the reception area as you come into TTEC Leeds, and there's a little picture of one of the gyms there, and the gym, should I say, not one of the gyms. And what I want to kind of get across here is that we firmly believe that we need an energizing platform and an energizing building for people to walk into. You know, and this really ticks those boxes of, you're buzzing when you walk through the door. but you feel like you're in a vibrant workspace. It lifts your spirits as you walk through the door. And, we really wanted to make sure that we hit that. Whilst this is a blueprint for TTEC, that we landed that in TTEC Leeds, and that we harmonised the Leeds culture and the Volkswagen culture with the global TTEC culture. And here's just some images of how we've done that in the Leeds site. And this should have been the Leeds site that 400 people were walking into way back in the middle of last year before the pandemic hit. So what do we do for Volkswagen? So we are the customer service centre. So we work with Volkswagen's top 6 brands. You can see there Audi, Skoda, Seat, Cupra, Volkswagen passenger cars, and Volkswagen commercial vehicles. We also deliver technical parts, mobility and brand support for the 700 dealership franchise network that's out in the UK as well. We work across telephony and email, live chat, social listening, social monitoring, social media. We have a live tour function where we give literally live video tours of the vehicles, the new vehicles that have been launched, and we have a sales function through there. So it's a huge, complex organisation, and it's a fascinating organisation. But there's, like I said, there's lots of complexity to it. So that's TTEC, and that's Volkswagen. This is that journey that I wanted to share with you, and kind of touch on how employee engagement's been impacted during that journey as we've worked through the year. So, as I said earlier, TTEC won this contract back in December 2019, and from that point on, it became, your normal TUPE transfer of outsourcer to another outsourcer, and what we thought would have been quite a challenging journey anyway, as it always is as you're going through TUPE, became actually an extremely challenging journey due to the pandemic and the lockdown. So we very quickly, as we approached March and the world was waking up to what was happening, we moved from contract win TUPE to how do we set our teams up to work from home? How do we transition them to TTEC and get all the technology out to them? So there's so many lessons learned. I've never talked about Ethernet cables as much in my life. We had a 7,000 line project plan, and we had this kind of objective of ensuring every single person came across on that journey feeling positive about becoming a TTEC employee. At the same time, Volkswagen as an industry, whilst lots of industries were, down in contact because their industry was closing down, Volkswagen was in this kind of juxtaposition of closing down as an industry as their centres were closing, but ramping up hugely in volume as people all of a sudden wanted to know how their warranties were impacted, how their sales plans that were coming to an end would be extended, what were their payment plans going to look like. So all of a sudden we were 120% over forecasting the Volkswagen financial world that was coming into the CSC. Now, the lesson that we learned in that area for me was satisfaction versus engagement. So typically there's lots of studies out there that suggest that as a workforce, only around 35% of the workforce are engaged. Then you have a huge element that are satisfied, and then you have a 10% of team that are kind of disengaged or negative about the organisation. We learned very quickly that we had this 35% of core individuals that would move mountains to get us set up working from home, to get everything ready for this transition across. So whilst we were extremely reliant on these people, 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week, doing whatever it took, all of a sudden we had this huge learning slap bang in the middle of it as, why are people reacting differently to this? And it was the satisfaction versus engagement. You would speak to people that were happy and satisfied and wanted to come along, but I wouldn't say doing the bare minimum, but they were doing their job. They were making themselves successful, and they were hitting their personal commitment. And what we realized more than ever was just how much we needed engaged employees, people that would go over and above, people that had a mutual commitment with the business, be Volkswagen, TTEC, and that were actively invested in making this a success. So that became one of our biggest challenges. How do we get the 35% up as we're going through lockdown? We then moved into April and June, and we started with the office construction in Leeds, which became, ground to a halt due to the the lockdown, as everybody's aware. And the safety element of the pandemic with all the masks and the screens, and there was all of a sudden another 200 or 300 line items added to that plan to make the building safe and to make our individuals safe, and start this whole collaboration across into TTEC. So we relied heavily on community spirit. What started to emerge at this point was the well-being of our people, and what was I suppose the most interesting at that point was seeing how it was impacting different people. We realised very early on that there was a big percentage of people that were confused about what was happening to them, scared about what was happening in the world, worried about joining a new organisation, feeling they should be pleased, because lots of people always wanted to work from home. We never had a work from home function. So there was this feeling of I should be pleased now that I'm kind of getting what I'm wanting and I'm at home and I'm safe. But I'm still feeling anxious and panicky, and I'm still having these down moments. And we kept seeing it come in waves, and people would work through that wave, and then you'd have an engaged team over here, and this team over there would drop, and then they would spike, and that team would drop. So we realised we had to combat the waves of well-being. So we decided to deploy a risk register around employee engagement, people that needed additional support, people that needed their awareness of what was happening to them as individuals and teams, and not just the practical of having to get used to Zoom and Teams meeting and being part of 50 Teams groups that are pinging every 2 minutes and getting to use the technology, but just what does it mean to not have that face-to-face interaction? How can you recognise in yourselves that you may be having a well-being issue? So we started to build this then as physical health and mental health. And you'll see here on the screen some of the things that we deployed to combat people that were struggling with mental health, be it COVID or the working environment, or people that were struggling with physical health, be it they were actually, getting COVID. During this time, we were starting to see a ramp up of our employees contracting the COVID virus, which was a very worrying time, and I'm sure it has been for lots of your organisations as well. So to optimise physical health, we were ensuring that we were sharing, tips and tricks and hints for making sure that you were physically still moving around, you were in a kind of ergonomic environment that you were working. We were shipping technology and equipment to people from Ireland. At the time, TTEC didn't have a UK mainland site to do this from, as well as ensuring the people that needed professional services were getting it. We engaged multiple organisations to assure that we were getting counselling and coaching and wellbeing and things like that. And then we also, and Stephen was mentioning there about water cooler catch-ups, we started to create virtual corridor catch-ups. So just an environment that was basically replicating the corridor, or an environment where we were replicating going for a coffee. And we started to encourage this, just dial into this and have a coffee, just dial into that and have a chat. But we also ensured from a practical point of view, there was a tech breakout room, there was an onboarding breakout room. There was all these different things that people I can just ping pong around to make sure I'm getting the support. And then we moved into, so at this point, some of the teams had started to transfer to TTEC. As we moved to July, we were transferring to TTEC in earnest. So this really is where we've got this combination of the Volkswagen team starting to deploy the really enhanced and advanced digital offering to us as new employees as we came to TTEC. So what we found there then is we had this amazing onboarding, TTEC U we call it, this online university where you can be onboarded and you can do all your mandatory training, you can learn about the culture of the business, you can see where all your teammates are around the business, and it's such a welcoming environment to come into, we had this next wave of everybody starting to feel good and positive again to hit this seamless transfer. At this point, Volkswagen was still extremely busy, and we had to kind of start to take into account of getting people used to the TTEC culture, of which it's an amazing culture, and we didn't want to lose. At this point, we'd realised nobody was coming into the building. Everybody was staying at home. So how do you transfer this global culture into 400 people's houses around the Yorkshire region? And we use this technology to do it. So everybody all of a sudden starts to receive to their mobile phones. Louis, who is our TTEC mascot, welcome on board, and click here to go through this, and click here to learn that. And we started to send videos out of the new site. We did a virtual site launch with the Volkswagen client, and all our guys around home. And we had, you'll see some pictures later on of people. We could get a minimum team in the office to celebrate. But then what we started to see was that the participation started to drop off. So we had all these forums in place. And you would get to the point where you would ask for opinion and you could hear a pin drop. And what we started to realize then, the lesson that we learned in this phase, is people aren't used to collaborating and participating in this forum. In the office, when you in a meeting room, when you can see body language and you can make eye contact to encourage somebody to, I'm asking for your opinion now. All of a sudden that was gone. And partly, practically speaking, people just literally, when can I come off mute? And when can I participate? And is this the right time for me to speak? So we had to find that technological route movement around those barriers, but also just realizing people aren't confident on these platforms. So all of a sudden you're on camera, and being on camera has a completely different connotation to being in a meeting room. So we decided to create an engagement calendar that would tick all the boxes, and it would cater to everybody's personal needs, be it, I want to know where I'm going to have fun, or I want to know where I'm going to be developed to be good in my role, or developed to be, what are the opportunities for me to progress my career? Where's the social inclusion element? Where's diversity being picked up? What are we doing for the local community? How are TTEC supporting, the world of the COVID pandemic? How can I literally just see my mates at work? How can I get into this forum? So here you see that we basically say, right, this is everything that's happening in January. And here's what it ticks off. It's a well-being event. It's a fun event. It's a training event. A charity event. Here's where you can dial in. Here's all the technology that you can use. But also here's what's expected of you. And we very quickly learned on that journey, we can't have 50 teams groups and expect everyone to keep in touch with it. So all of a sudden it was about personalizing communication and digitalizing communication. So we went from our Zoom calls to 1-minute video updates. We went from monthly comms, where we're just desperately trying to get everything to everybody, because you can't check real time as everybody getting it. We went from huge comms to personalized comms. So now we send 1-minute video updates out, and it's to the point. We have weekly senior leadership meetings that we give that accountability back to the team and say, look, this is happening. It's happening here, here, and here. You decide when you can join. You be the master of your own domain. How can you fit that in with your at-home lifestyle and still make sure that you're on board with where we're going? So it really, and Stephen touched on it there about accountability, it was putting that accountability back on the guys to say, we're all on this journey. We've all got to make it work for our own personalities. So then we were fully deployed, and we were over at TTEC, and we had all this amazing technologies available to us. But then it sinks in that everybody's at home, and we have to deliver the biggest transformation that's ever happened to the customer service center at Volkswagen. We're completely digitalizing the transformation. It's a productive hour model. We now need to know where everybody is every minute of the day and ensure that they understand all these new systems. We're moving to a new CRM. We're moving to a new platform. We had to train all this out. So then we got really good at TTEC have a really good virtual training platform, creating virtual training classrooms with virtual tech support alongside coaching our management. So we immediately put all the management through a 5-day training course. And this is what you need to know to manage a team at home effectively. Here's your emotional skill sets. Here's how you judge people's emotional purity. Here are all the tools that you can deploy to fit in with different people and how they're coping with at home. And that kind of really took us up to today, where we're now looking at these personalized workspaces. So this is a tool that's available to all our TTEC operations, but we personalize it for Volkswagen. And again, you can see here in the bottom left, it's almost like an app based, and the top right as well. You can click on the bits that are relevant to you, and it's going to prompt up tech support, well-being support, incentivization. This is how you're going to be bonused. All of a sudden, our guys were bonused for the first time ever. And again, in terms of the lessons learned, we were landing and going, guess what? You're all going to be bonused, thinking that that's going to be great news for everyone. And all of a sudden people are going, well, how's it going to impact my benefits? And how are you going to ensure that the scorecards fit for purpose? And I work in tech, how am I compared to somebody that's in customer services versus a live chat? And these lessons learned of, consistent and accurate comms that isn't an overload, but it's getting to the point of what people need to hear. So this is kind of how it transpired as we landed in September to January. We had some really good quick wins, some really good wins in terms of the things we went after: praise for a job well done, increasing well-being and recognition, and the training that we deployed to the management around recognizing home workers and working with different emotional levels and things like that. We saw this increase there. You see from 68 to 80 and 80 to 87. But you also see, well, we've still some work to go. And, receiving the necessary information, this is that digital platform that we're learning all the time. Is it SMS? Is it a bot? Is it direct to your phone, or is it through Teams? So we know we have work to do there. We know we have opportunities to learn and grow. Same with the opinions. What you would find is, as people were going through these waves of well-being that I referred to earlier, when they were in the trough, and it just take a rocket scientist to say they were coming out with negative sentiment towards, be it their homework, their transition, and then 2 weeks later you'd put in them on the risk register and you'd follow up, and it was, I was just having a bad day, I'm loving life and everything's great. So this is now that we're learning through, how do we factor in those opinions in the peaks and the troughs and try and get some consistency and some stability in the business to ensure that whatever the next few months, be it everyone's back in the office, be it a hybrid model, we're taking all these lessons and we're catering to people's needs, and we're consulting with them on their platform of choice. And really, our advisors and our managers are becoming our customers of the future. It used to be that all we would talk about is how does the customer want to be engaged with and what's the customer's satisfaction. We're asking all those same questions now of our workforce. What do you want? Make you your most productive, or make you your most happiest, and how do you want to receive all that information? So there, some of the actions you'll see there at the bottom, I've made reference to throughout, but it's a continued creating these forums and environments for people to engage on their terms, while still giving structured development and progression to teams and individuals, whilst incentivizing and boarding wherever we can. So the good news is we currently going through a pulse at the moment, our March pulse, our global pulse, and we are already at record levels participation from our guys. So we're getting something right. We're still to wait to hear what they've got to say, but the more people are participating than ever before, which is great. We do a local pulse as well, and the themes coming out of that are suggesting that we're increasing on all those metrics. Well, that remains to be seen. So to summarise in what we achieved, we moved the business without impacting. We achieved every single service level during that period. When this was all being set up originally, we talked about we're going to have reduced service levels and reduce productivity. We didn't need any of it. We nailed customer service. If you were a Volkswagen customer during this period, you would have not recognised the difference between ringing us a year ago, to ringing us whilst everybody was at home, and that was a huge achievement for the team. We managed to get the office up and running and make it COVID secure, and we managed to get some teams in, and we managed to share that office with the guys, and we used that onboarding, virtual onboarding, and some classroom onboarding to do that. We had zero redundancies. We furloughed some guys during the transition, but we had zero redundancies, and that was my personal objective. Was we leave no one behind. We take the team, and whatever engagement or well-being or issue presents itself, we fix it and we bring everyone across. And I think that was the biggest achievement for me and the team there. And then safe, happy, productive employees, and we saw, and we're starting to see even more of that delivering an exceptional customer service on behalf of the Volkswagen customer. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I think I'm on time with that, and it really was just a case study, rather than, here's all the, I suppose, the industry stats and around engagement. It was more of a, here's our journey and here's the things we learned. And if you or your organisations may be going on a similar journey, maybe you can take some things away that will shorten your journey to realising some of the things that we realised early on.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much for sharing your story there. Really, really appreciate that.